Coming up, we've got highlights from some early season track and field.
Also, we have highlights from the baseball border battle between some of the best teams from Fargo and Sioux Falls. Plus, a look ahead to some of the best upcoming events on Varsity Sports.
And hello and welcome to Varsity Sports alongside Jason Andera. I am Jay Elson. Well, we start this week on the Diamond, where 3 Fargo teams made the 3-hour trip south to Sioux Falls for some early season competition over the weekend. And Jason, let's get right into the highlights on this one. The border battle. Sioux Falls Lincoln had their hands full Friday, but came away with a pair of wins in their first game. The Pats got a great hitting and pitching performance from Parker Bullard in a 3-0 win over Fargo North. The nightcap proved to be a little more interesting. Nolan Burchell started the game with 5 no-hit innings, only to see his relief give up 3 runs in the top of the 6th. That left the Pats trailing 3-2 coming into the home half of the 7th, but Caleb Anderson comes through in the clutch. He delivers a walk-off 2-run single to give Lincoln a 4-3 win.
An exciting win for the champs. Also on Friday, Sioux Falls Roosevelt went 2-0 with wins over Fargo Shanley and Fargo North. In the Shanley game, the Riders hung on to a 1-0 lead most of the game, but then exploded for 8 runs in the bottom of the 6th to get a 9-0 win. It was Stuart Baruth who got the win in the 6 innings, and he struck out 9 batters. On Saturday, the Riders found themselves against Shanley again, and again, they pulled out a win. This time, Riders got started early with a 4-run first inning. Jake Eichacker went 5 strong with 9 Ks. Chandler Austin supplied 2 hits and 2 RBIs, giving Roosevelt a 7-4 victory.
Also on Saturday, Sioux Falls Washington played Fargo North in what's sure to be one of the longest high school baseball games anyone in this part of the country is going to see this season. Each team manufactured a run in the 3rd inning, but there would be no more scoring until the top of the 13th. Carter Thompson doubled to lead off the inning, and he ends up scoring on a balk a short time later. How about after all that baseball?
That's how you win a ball game.
Ends up being decided on a balk. That was the winning run as Fargo North gets their only win in the border battle, 2-1 in 13 innings over Washington. Let's take a quick look now at how things ended. Sioux Falls Roosevelt, the only team to manage to get through the weekend undefeated.
All these teams involved, we're just happy to get 4 games in. Early season border battle, you just want the weather to be nice and get those games in, especially the North Dakota teams. This doesn't count against their region record. They're trying to play a lot of young players, but still, they played close. I mean, look at the records. Maybe the Fargo teams didn't get the wins, but they played in a lot of close games.
And I think you even just look back 12 months ago when the Fargo schools, Sioux Falls schools got together, it was pretty well dominated. Yeah. And you look at these, and sure, the Sioux Falls team still got the wins, but Fargo competed at a lot higher level than they did a year ago.
Even Fargo South with an 0-4 record, they had several 1-run games throughout this weekend, so yeah, they can't hang their heads out of this performance.
As you can see, Midco SN was there for several of these games, and you can keep an eye out for the replays of those games right here on Midco Sports Network. Be sure to check your local listings for the times and dates. All right, Jason, with that in mind now, let's take a little closer look at North Dakota baseball. Give us an early season overview here, starting with Class A.
Well, the teams to watch out for, you have to look to the west for most of the teams, but the top team, you have to look to West Fargo, and they do it with pitching. Ben Strom is back, Chase Gooding, Tony Nichols, all guys that are going to go on to Division I junior college programs next year, all doing a great job for Fargo, and they've jumped out to a 7-0 start this season. So I look for them to be one of the teams to beat, and it's a mess out west. A lot of good teams. Bismarck, a very young team, but bring back some experience with Jackson Ford, Alex Seibel, Ryan Bowman, but they've gotten off to a good start as well, winning 5 of their first 6 games. But Century, Mandan, Minot, all could be players in this thing, especially Mandan with an ace like Parker Harm. He's done a great job, future NDSU player. And Dickinson, even though they started out the year with a few losses, a lot of people picked them right at the top of their picks at the beginning of the season, and I wouldn't look past Dickinson just because they got off to a rough start.
All right, so West Fargo out to that great start. Bismarck giving chase, but certainly seems to be pretty open after that in Class A in North Dakota. How about Class A softball now? Can West Fargo do it again?
Well, of course they can. Ever since softball has been played for a championship in North Dakota, West Fargo has come home with that championship. Now this season, they start out the year they've been playing just fine, but they did have one hiccup against Brandon Valley last weekend in the West Fargo Invitational. That's a little cause for concern, especially when you have a team like Bishop Ryan in the exact same class playing at a very high level with players like Hannah Stewart and Cheyenne Schmidt back. The problem was Bishop Ryan is a very young team. Just 2 seniors on this team, lost 7 important players off of last year's team. So this field is open this year, a lot more open than it has been in the past. You look to Dickinson with Madison Johnner back. You look to Fargo Davies with Shelby Malminger back as an all-state player. Bismarck with Jamie Barta. A lot of players, a lot of teams could make some noise this year. It's not an open and shut case.
Well, Bishop Ryan, of course, has challenged West Fargo when it's come down to state tournament time. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get over the hump this year, maybe take advantage of West Fargo a little bit.
2 very different teams than last year, though.
But yeah, and exactly. That's just we're gonna watch them grow up literally and get that kind of experience that, face it, a lot of these players are getting for the first time at the varsity level. So stands to be a pretty exciting season in Class A softball in North Dakota. All right, well, athletes from 3 states converged on Brandon last weekend for the Brandon Valley Lynx Invite. We're going to take a look at those highlights when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, the weather cooperated enough this past weekend to get in the first outdoor track and field meets of the season. And to talk about one big one in South Dakota, we bring in Alex Heinert. Alex, you were at the Brandon Valley Lynx Invite in Brandon on Saturday. And for an early season meet, the competition level here certainly did not disappoint.
Yeah, no, it did not. There were all 4 Sioux Falls AA schools in attendance, along with a good ESD contingent, as well as Sioux City East and West and Laverne, so a couple of states represented. Let's go to the highlights. It was a windy day in Brandon, but that did not stop the times from being low. And how about this field in the boys 100, a who's who of local D1 football talent, including Roosevelt's Taryn Christian and Chase Vinatieri. But it's O'Gorman's Dodie McQuinja taking the win with a 10.85 clocking. That's 2/100ths ahead of Christian. For reference, 10.80 won state AA last year. Take note of that one. Other top performances, how about Harrisburg's Haley Brueggemann, the AA runner-up in both hurdle events from last year, would win both on this day, edging Washington's Mira Miedema there by only 13/100ths in the 100-meter hurdles and by a much more comfortable margin in the 300s. She's going to USD next year, Jay Elson, someone to watch for. Great race here in the boys 400 between Lincoln's Ned Sudbeck here and Harrisburg's Paul. A great finish. All 3, along with Isaiah Federal of Washington, go under 51 seconds. Sudbeck with the win, 50.15. A great day for Lincoln High School, and the distances as well on both the boys and girls side. Nathan Schroeder here cruising to the win in the mile in a 4:25.12. He was a runner-up at state in this event a year ago with a 4:26, so already faster than he was at the end of last season. That's a good sign. And this is a good sign too. Will Lauer running in his first meet of the year. This is, again, the defending AA state cross-country champ. He casually drops a 9:33 clocking in the 2-mile. That's 11 seconds better than the winning time at last year's AA state meet. This kid is here to run this year. He's going to be fun to watch, chasing some history in those distance events. And then rounding out the Patriot dominance on the girls' side, freshman Jasmine Cooper. She would win the 800 meters in a great clocking of 2:21. But again, look at the distance. She's beating kids by 5 seconds who are all top AA performers. And she would double that up with an outstanding mark of 5:07. Now that's a mile mark that would have been top 2 at state last year. To cap it off here, she finishes the day with the 4x4. Brandon Valley, such a great 4x4 team. Courtney Bickley on the anchor, along with Cooper. But look at the freshman chases Bickley down right at the end. A great finish. Jasmine Cooper, a name you gotta know. She was the MVP of this meet, a worthy, deserving candidate, rounding out a really fun day over at Brandon Valley last week.
I think a lot of people do know as of now, and we're going to expect a lot more performances like that over the next few years out of that young lady. So congratulations to her. Congratulations to Lincoln on a strong performance on Saturday. For more on the week that was in high school track and field, it's time now for a brand new segment here on Varsity Sports, something we're calling the Acceleration Zone. To keep us on time here, we're putting 1:51 on the clock to get us through as many questions as we can. Alex, what is the significance of that particular time?
I'm glad you asked that. 1:51, the all-time North Dakota high school record in the 800 meters that was set back in 2010 by Bismarck's High's Brandon Barnes, who's now running for Iowa State, Jay. 1:51.
Okay, so he's pretty good. All right. The gun is up. Here it is. Here we go. What performances at the Brandon Valley Invite impressed you the most this past weekend.
You know, we just talked about her, but Jasmine Cooper of Sioux Falls Lincoln is right up there. I mean, to win the 8 and the mile and the times that she put up, and then to chase down one of the better 400-meter runners in the state in the last race of the day after a full program. Yeah. You know, I'm sold. Jim Jarosky of Lincoln told me before this meet that she's got a shot to break school records in 4 different events.
Oh, wow.
And again, just a freshman. Watch out for her. I've all got to mention, by the way, too, Caleb Ellis of Brookings. He was this runner-up at the state AA's in the pole vault last year at 14.3. He went 15 feet Saturday on a very windy afternoon. He wasn't that far off of 15.5, a mark that would have put him 4th best all-time in South Dakota. Wow. He's got a good shot to make some history this spring.
All right, with those guys in mind, which off-the-radar individuals seem to be emerging as some real championship contenders?
You know, I was surprised at how fast some of the Roosevelt contingent were for this point in the season. Maywin Cook put up solid times in both hurdle events. He held off Ned Sudbeck of Lincoln in the last leg of the 4x4. Cook's teammate Josh Gearing was lights out as well in everything that he did, including beating a solid field in the Open 800. He was named the meet's boys MVP. Both of those guys were on the lower rungs of the podium at state last year, but it looks like they're going to be taking a few steps up come this May. Also, in North Dakota, how about Hunter Johnson? This is a junior sprinter from Bismarck High. Just like Gearing and Cook, he placed at state last year, but he's really emerged in the first outdoor meets of the season as the guy to beat in both the 100 and the 200. 22.17 200 time last week at the Bismarck Denton Relays. He has got our attention.
I think you're set, so you got to pick
Bell
up
lap.
the pace
Here we go.
Finally,
Here we go.
give us some meat to pay attention to this week.
Rapid City, Track-O-Rama, one of the best of the best from West River. Plus, it's going to be a strong ESD crew and schools from Wyoming. It is a meet early in the season that really sets the stage for the whole year. And plus, that is where state is being held, O'Hara Stadium. That's all it's time. That's all we got.
So close. But, well, just think about it. That amount of time it took you to answer 3 questions is, you know, the same amount of time Brandon Barnes could run a half a mile.
He's really fast, and it's hard to be concise.
It is.
Jay.
I'll give you that. We'll stick around. We've got North Dakota Class B to preview later on. But when we come back on Varsity Sports, we're going to break down the best of the best in the 2 smaller classes here in South Dakota.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, Alex Heinert returns now to talk a little bit more high school track and field. And we are looking at Class A and B in South Dakota now, Alex. And unlike the bigger classes in both states, you think there's a good chance that we're going to crown a new champion for the Class A boys and girls and the Class B boys. But you don't think that will be the case in Class B girls.
You know, I don't, and I am not in the minority on that one, Jay. The Ipswich girls are the massive favorites again this year after winning the last 3 Class B titles. The last 2, by the way, by an average of 70 points. That's an incredible amount for a school this size. Sophomore Macy Hines and her 11 individual state titles is the headliner, but you don't score 90-17 points just because you've got one special talent.
Sure.
Todd Thorson's team features a great sprinter in Angela Hines, the defending pole vault champ in Autumn Pitts, a bunch of really good distance kids that helped them win their 5th straight cross-country title. The title's staying with the Tigers in what's basically year 4 of a 6-year dynasty up there at Ipswich.
Pretty impressive run already, not to mention what may lie in store for that program. So you're obviously feeling pretty confident about that pick. Elsewhere in South Dakota, though, it's a little less clear. Staying in Class B now, Parker won the boys' title last year by just a point over Harriet-Selby area. Are we headed for another tight race in that class this year?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't going to be that tight. There were a lot of question marks in Class B after a majority of the 2014 individual champs and place winners all graduated. It's really a new group this year. The only real known quantity at this point in the spring is Freeman, who finished 3rd in the team race last year. They're led by Brennan Schmidt. We talked about him last week. He'll be a heavy favorite to repeat in the 400 and could be in the mix in the Open 2 as well. The Flyer 4x4 team, which Schmidt anchored to a title last year, returns 3 of their 4 legs. They should be competitive in the other sprint relays as well. Now, more than likely, someone or some team is going to emerge in Class B during the season that will change that title landscape a little bit. Corsica Sickney has a good sprint core returning. James Valley Christian and Phillip will be strong in the distance events. But for right now, just on paper, it's hard to make a case for anybody other than Freeman at this point in the spring.
Well, stay tuned on that one. Moving on to Class A now. The Custer boys have won the last 2 state titles in dominating fashion. But they've got a lot to replace this year.
Yeah, you're right on both counts there. Custer has been the class of Class A the past 2 years, posting a 103-point performance in 2014, thanks to really great mid and long distance teams and a lot of depth every place else. However, They lose Brennan Witt, Israel Parsons, Chase Glazier, Logan Burns. That's a group that accounted for 76 points from last year's state meet. I don't think they've got enough to repeat. But that doesn't mean the title is going to leave the Black Hills. I think St. Thomas More, they've got depth in multiple areas. They finished 4th in 2014. I think they move up and find themselves atop the team podium this spring. The Cavs don't have any returning individual champions, but between Alec Keegan, Jake Anderud, Giles McGillick, Alec Clapperich, they got a lot of sprinters there to go along with Throw's favorite Lincoln Feist, 300-meter hurdle specialist Evan Henderson, and state cross-country runner-up Luke Julian. Bonham's got a lot of quality coming back, too, but I like the Cavaliers. I think it's their year this year in Class A.
All right, finally, Class A girls in South Dakota. Sioux Falls Christian won it last year behind all those great seniors. Who do you like this May?
Yeah, well, SFC was so much fun to watch last year, and they still have hurdler Shelly B. Zilmerman and a few other returners from that team. But it's just not going to be enough for them to keep up with the likes of St. Thomas More or Madison. The Bulldogs of Madison last year, strong in the distance events. Haley Streff was really fun to watch. Won the mile and 2 mile last year. Cross-country champ Emily Hawks. Plus, they return every member of their winning 4x8 team. However, STM, who was second to Sioux Falls Christian last year, has multiple contenders in just about every race. They've got the teams to beat in the sprint relays. Alexis Swedland, Kara and Shannon Duffy, Drew Galton, Avery White, they're all solid in those sprints and in some of the jumps as well. Plus, the Cavs actually beat Madison to win the state cross-country title. So that takes away a little bit of the Bulldogs' edge in those long distances. You know, the more I think about it, this is close to me at the beginning, but I really feel like STM might just run away with this thing. I really just talked myself into them, Jay, right there in the last minute.
So a Cavaliers sweep in Class A, that's the prediction?
I think so. I think that's what we're going to see.
I don't know, go anywhere just yet. We've got one more class of track and field in North Dakota to get to. That's coming up next here on Varsity Sports.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Time now for our last round of track and field previews with Alex Hodert. With North Dakota's Class B in the spotlight. For the girls, Alex Carrington has won the title the last 3 years. Do the Cardinals have what it takes to complete a four-peat?
Yeah, that's hard to do, and I think they've got a chance, but it's going to be a really close race, Jay. Carrington has had such success with their strength in the field in the last few years, and while they'll still be tough in the throws with Bailey Retzloff, Kari Hohalter, and in the distance events as well with Ashley Newmiller, I think this could be the year that someone knocks them off, and I think that team could be Hazen. We talked about the Bison's Dakota Wood last week. She'll be the favorite in both hurdle events, and also surprisingly, she's been posting some of the best times in North Dakota in the 1 and the 2 this spring. They've also got a lot of depth coming back in the relays and in the field events, and with nearly all their place winners returning from a team that was second to Carrington at state the last 2 years, I'm going to go out on a limb a bit. I think the Cardinals are still most likely the team to beat, but I think Hazen just might have enough to get the job done this spring.
Ooh, look at you taking risks here on the program.
That might come back to haunt me later this spring. We'll see. Again, Carrington's such a great program, but like I said, it's fun to branch out. And I think Hazen's got potentially what it takes to make that really interesting in Class B.
All right, I guess we're going to have to see. So last but not least now, let's look at the Class B boys race. Kindred, the defending champ here, but that was a senior-heavy Viking team last year. Who do you think emerges to take the crown this spring, assuming that it is not the Vikings?
Yeah, well, they were great. A great run for Kindred. They won the title by 26 points last year. But again, Eric Bachmeyer's graduated, as if every one of his teammates that won the 4x4 and the 4x8 crowns. This year, it feels like a 2 or 3 team race. I think Killdeer, Carrington, Newtown, all those teams have a legitimate shot. All 3 finished in a tight, albeit distance 2, 3, 4 behind Kindred at state last year, and they each have a lot coming back. I think Killdeer and Carrington are going to be really tough in the sprints and in the relays. Defending 400-meter champ Lewis Dobitz leads the charge for the Cowboys. Reigning 200-meter champ Seth Abarea comes back for the Cardinals. But as good as those two are, and they've got some good teammates as well, I think Newtown's depth in the distance events might be enough to put them over the top. They won the state cross-country title by, are you ready for this? By 109 points after placing 5 runners in the top 10. It was like 24 to 130 something between first and second. They're led by Ryan Wheeling, the defending mile and 2 mile champ, as well as Jalen Chase and a bunch of other good distance guys. Plus, they returned the reigning disc champ in Elijah Grady. I think it's going to be really close. Those 3 teams all have a lot of strength, but Newtown's ability, a la Bismarck, to get multiple placers in the distance events and a favorite in the field, I think that gives the Eagles a slight edge.
Well, a lot of good battles certainly on the way in those classes, Alex. And now that we've had a chance to look over the big school classes last week, the smaller school classes in both states this week, what really excites you about this track and field season? I know you're a junkie for this stuff.
It's the best time of year. It is a lot of fun to see these kids coming back year after year to put up great times, compete against each other. It's going to be fun to see, again, some of the best kids in both of these states going at it in multiple events. What I'm really looking forward to, though, again, Howard Wood Dakota Relays on May 1st and 2nd when they get to face off against each other. We always joke about how it's a sport that it doesn't matter where you're from, what class you're in, what state you're in. The times stand alone, but it's different when you're competing on the same track. And so again, May 1st and 2nd, it's the girls' special 800 this year and the boys' special 2. We're going to see some outstanding performances. I can't wait for that coming up at the start of next month.
As you mentioned, the clock certainly doesn't lie, but a little pride at stake too, North and South Dakota, right?
Just a little bit.
Little bit. Well, again, Alex Seidert, thanks for all that great stuff. Well, between the track and the dive, it's going to be another busy week across the Dakotas. We're going to share what we think are some of the top events on tap right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Before we go, Jason, want to take a look ahead at what are some of the best games, some of the best events in the spring sports schedule for this week in North and South Dakota.
I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. On Thursday, Lincoln taking on Yankton in the new field at Yankton. We're also going to have that one as our HD game of the week, so look for that one coming down the road. And then the very next day, Lincoln has to take on Roosevelt. Could be the two best teams in South Dakota facing off on Friday. Another great game on Friday, WDA softball. It doesn't get much better than this. Bishop Ryan taking on Dickinson, which should be a great pitcher's duel. Saturday, more of an interesting game. You got Dickinson, who started out a little slow. Mandan, a couple losses already, but that will shape how that WDA ends up. And then the Trackorama in Rapid City. You got a lot of great athletes that will congregate in Rapid City for that one.
And we're going to have some highlights and, of course, reaction, breakdown, a lot of that action for you here next week on Varsity Sports. For Jason Dandera, I'm Jay Elson. Thanks for watching.